YouTubers. Today I want to talk about reloading your own ammunition. Some of you may have never heard of doing such a thing, and you're like, what? Really? Other people of you might be freaked out, and you might be like, what, are you some kind of bomb chemist? You're like reloading your own ammunition? That's insane. And the answer is no, I'm not a bomb chemist, and loading your own ammunition is perfectly legal. And it's safe if you use your brain, and it also saves you a bunch of money, and it's a lot of fun. So, and then there's other folks who this video is geared more to, where you want to get into reloading, but you're not exactly sure how. And I'll just kind of share some very specific things with you, and my experience. I've just been reloading for 2 years, so I'm not a professional, but I have a system and it works. So I'm just going to kind of share what works for me, and you can take it or leave it. So I made some bullet points, and I'm just going to kind of go over it. So what we have here is the two basic reasons for reloading. Number one is economy. Briefly, you can go to a store and you can buy, a box of, let's see if I can find, well, this doesn't have the price on it anymore. But you can buy a basic box of that's 40, it says 40, but it was 9mm ammunition for, I believe the price was $17.99. Okay, 50 cartridges, 9mm ammunition, $18. Okay, that might be a little on the high side, but I mean, generally speaking, between 15 and $18. Okay, cool. So, I don't have a 40 Smith & Wesson box here, but on the other side of things, another very expensive cartridge is the 380 ACP, or aka 380 Auto. There's no price on here, but I believe this cost me like $25. A lot of people don't even want to carry pocket pistols because they're chambered in the 380 round, and it's so darned expensive that they don't want to buy the pistol, and if they buy the pistol, they don't want to shoot it. I want to tell you right out front, 380 is one of the cheapest calibers, if not the cheapest caliber, to reload once you get into it, and it's a blast. It's absolutely awesome. So anyways, economy, you spend between $15 and $25 on a box of 50 rounds of ammunition. I want to say once you get started, it takes a little while, to get the hang of things, and it takes some money to get started. It's like any hobby. You got to think about it not as just an add-on to shooting, but it is an entirely different hobby altogether. If you think about it, you need some money to get started into the hobby, but once you do, you're just rocking and rolling, and then you're just it's fun. So what I have estimated is about a box of 380 ACP. Right now I'm using auto comp powder. I use 3.5 grains. I'll talk more about that later. But I use lead round nose. It's pretty cheap. You can buy, this is what I got right now. I got this Acme from Gary's in Sioux Falls. $40 for 500 projectiles. And so what that equates out to, with powder and primers and all of the ingredients and everything together, I can make a box of 380 ACP for about $6. 9mm, because it takes a little more powder, averages out to about $7.50 a box. And 40 Smith & Wesson, which is typically $20 a box, it costs about 11 or 12 to load a 50-round box of 40 Smith & Wesson. So you're talking 50% savings on that stuff. So economy is very important, and when you're talking economy, you really do want to save as much money as possible and cut corners where you can, but also keep in mind that there's other things that you can't cut corners on, and you want to spend the extra money for. So being very, very smart and very good about your economy. The other thing is customization. Now that I have a subscript here, accuracy, recoil, manageability, consistency. Now, 380 ACP. I realize that not everybody shoots this, but I'm just going to use this for an example. I have a Smith & Wesson 380 Bodyguard, and when I first got it, I started shooting factory rounds through it, and I absolutely hated the thing. It felt like I was getting a high five from the Jolly Green Giant. I mean, it would smack your hand. It was uncomfortable to shoot. I was not accurate with it. I was just about to just get rid of it and just quit 380 altogether. Then I thought, well, I've had such good luck with 9mm reloading that I would decide to get into 380 auto and reload 380 auto. Well, what I found out is I can customize different loads with different powder to manage recoil, which also goes with manageability, which also helps accuracy and consistency. So it all ties together. So now the loads that I shoot are just a little bit lighter for my practice loads, you know. They're just a little bit lighter, but they're fun to shoot. They don't hurt my hands, they're accurate, and they're nice to shoot. So I'm very happy with that. Now defense loads, as you know, it's a carry gun. I'm going to load those a little hotter because in the heat of the moment, I'm not really going to care if my hand is hurting. I'm going to make sure that the bad guy that is attacking me is disarmed or taken out of the fight, because, you know, it's him or me. That's just how it works. I'm not going to be worried about recoil. I'm just going to be worried about eliminating the threat. So yeah, and if you're a competition shooter, odds are you're already into reloading already. And if you're not, you can really, really dial in accuracy very well with the different types of projectiles, the different types of powders, the different, just for example, this auto comp. Now, pistol powder is a little hard to get a hold of. I'm not a competition shooter, but this is competition powder. A lot of competition guys use auto comp and swear by it. So it meters well. It's a good powder. So you can really dial in the accuracy for your pistol and everything like that. Consistency. Now, you know, most factory rounds are pretty good with consistency. I have heard problems. Now, I don't want to slam anybody, but I have heard problems of remanufactured ammunition like Ultramax. Now, 90 to 95% of the box of Ultramax are going to be fine, but I have heard of that 5% somewhere in there that is not good. I mean, there's failure to fires and problems because it's remanufactured. You're buying reloaded ammunition. It's from Black Hills Ammunition, which is in South Dakota, right where I live, which is fine. Rapid City, South Dakota. I used to live there. It's pretty cool. But anyways, I mean, you're basically buying reloads at a factory price. And not all factory reloads, believe it or not, are consistent. Most of them are. But with this, you can throw the question out the window because you are the one loading. And if you want to be, you can be as meticulous as you want with reloading. So if you want the perfect powder, the perfect grain, the perfect bullet, I mean, you can do whatever you want. You are the genie of your reloading capabilities. So that's the why. That's the two basic reasons I would say for reloading. Now, the first thing that you need to start reloading is a workspace, and this is my basement. I have kind of a good setup. Don't mind the mess. This is like that over there is just a crazy mess. But see, this is a corner in my basement. It is dedicated to reloading and a cowboy hat. it's got, I mean, there's nothing else that I'm using this space for. This is reloading. So you want to definitely, if you can, have a workspace for reloading. A spacious area is great. An area where you can stretch out, an area where you can put a beer, you know? You can put your beer there. Don't get drunk and reload. I wouldn't recommend that, but because you might throw a double charge and then we got problems, you know. But anyways, yeah, you definitely want a workspace, and I say free because you can pretty much carve out any place in your apartment or your house or wherever that you can dedicate to this hobby. So that's very important. You don't want to just throw a desk in the middle of your living room. I mean, you can, but, you know, pretty soon before you know it, you got dishes stacked up on there, especially if you're a bachelor, and now it's not your workspace, it's your everything. So, now, number 2 is time and patience. Obviously, reloading takes a bit of time. With reloading, I use a single stage press, and I'll get around to that a little bit later. The single stage press is the slowest way to reload, but it is the most consistent way to reload, arguably. I mean, I'm not going to debate, but everything is done one step at a time. Now, I've found that I can reload about 100 rounds an hour. So if you have a few hours after work or in the day, I mean, you can crank out 200 or 300 loads a day if you want, you know, or a week or a month, just depends on how much you want to shoot. So you do need a little extra time. Patience. I can't stress this enough. You will screw up on loads, and it is frustrating, and it is maddening, and you're going to waste supplies, and you're going to spill powder. That's my favorite one. I've spilled so much darn powder. It just, oh gosh. You'll spill powder, you'll drop primers on the floor, you'll lose primers, you will reload stuff backwards, you're gonna just, it takes a lot of patience. But do not lose heart, because you will get better at it, and all of your screw-ups, if you're a fast learner, you're gonna learn not to do certain things. The main thing is to catch those screw-ups before you put them in your gun and shoot them at the range. That's where you can get potentially dangerous. So, time and patience, those are 2 virtues you also need. Free, they are free. You can learn them for free. You can have them for free. Okay, now, the most important thing that I want to stress right off the bat is a solid reloading desk. Now, I got very fortunate. My father-in-law gave me this reloading desk. The top is wood, it's plywood, but I used some glue or some peel and stick tile on there, so when I spill my powder, I can just brush it off. The plywood was too rough. It was a little porous. I couldn't get the powder off. I would just have to, you know, brush it off. I couldn't salvage any powder, so I stuck on linoleum. Before I got this desk, I had quite a few problems with other desks. When you're using your reloading press and you go to, especially when you're popping out a primer, I don't know if I have any rounds that I can just pop out a primer with. Yeah, I guess I can. I'll show you. Okay, so here's a spent round. See, the primer is popped. I mean, it's a used case, and I have a 9mm deal in there. So when you lower this press, see how it touches there? You have to crank down hard, just like that, to pop that primer out. I don't know if you noticed, but this actually lifted up. So the first couple reloading desks that I had, even after 10 or 20 of popping primers out, this would start to crack and come apart and fall off in chunks. it was no good. I'd have to junk the desk. I mean, it was bad. So you want to make sure you get a very sturdy desk. And if you're not a handyman, I would highly recommend that you buy one that is made for reloading. I even reinforced this with 2 inches thick of plywood, and the screws are very thick. They come down. I don't know if you can see it. It's right there. It comes all the way through. All the way through. So you want to have a very sturdy desk, because if you don't, you're not even going to get started reloading. I mean, so if you're not a handyman, you don't feel like you can build a solid desk. And I will say, this is steel down here, so it's got some weight, so it's going to be stable. If you're not a handyman, you'll want to start saving for a reloading desk, and free if you're a handyman. Otherwise, I think they start out at about $100. You can go as high as, sky's the limit, but for a starting reloading desk, I'd say between $100 and $200. It's very important to have that. Now, a basic toolkit. Most guys have a basic toolkit. Screwdrivers, punches, hammers, Allen wrenches, which are very important for tightening dies and stuff. Good night. There's my wife. A basic toolkit. And if you don't have basic tools, go to Menards, go to Lowe's, just get a toolbox and start loading up with stuff. So most of you, that probably doesn't even apply if you don't have tools, or if you have tools. Okay, then we have the very first feature of the actual reloading process, which is a reloading press / kit. I went with, now going back to economy, I went with the Lee single stage press. It's like the classic 50th anniversary, something like that is what they call it. It comes with the press, and you have to assemble it, but there's instructions, pretty easy. It comes with the press itself. It comes with what they call the perfect powder measure, which I think is kind of an exaggeration, but it works fine. Comes with a balance beam scale that I pretty much just chucked because I don't like manual scales. And comes with a powder funnel, comes with, there's a little powder tray, and you can actually hook it up there, and it's a long story. I don't like to use it. But it comes with everything you need to start reloading. It's $120. So if you're trying to save money, and like I said, going back to economy, the cheapest way, and you will crank out good loads, consistent loads, with the Lee. Down the road, I would recommend maybe upgrading to something that cranks rounds out faster, but for me, it's not a big deal. I could use this press the rest of my life. I don't care. But yeah, it's about $120. So I'm sure you're tallying all of this up in your head. You're like, how am I actually going to save money on ammunition? I'm getting to that. Because the more you do it, the longer you're in it for the long haul, you will just start saving money. It will make up for what you did. Okay, dies and shell holders. So for each caliber that you want to reload, now right now I currently only load pistol calibers. I'm very much a pistol shooter. I want to get good at defensive, shooting and pistol shooting. Dies will cost anywhere, I've found, from $30. They actually do go up a bit higher than $50. But quality dies, you don't need to spend a whole lot of money unless you're shooting competition. My favorite brand of dies by far, and you'll hear varied opinions on this, is Lyman. Now, the reason for that is their lock rings stay in place. I've never had problems with the pins breaking off in the decappers or anything like that. They just work and they just run, and I don't have any problems with them. Hornady. This is the first die set from Hornady I have. Actually, I lied. I have a 243 set in there somewhere, but I've never used it. I just inherited it when I bought a 243 from some dude. And but the decapper die does not work. I have to send it back in, and it's very frustrating. So very frustrating when you can't load properly or you run into problems with your reloading dies. So that, and then I also had problems with Lee dies. Now, people will post and say, hey, what's wrong with Lee dies, or what's wrong with Hornady, or whatever. Everybody's experience is different, but through forth, I want to say Lyman is the best in my experience. I will, from now on, only buy Lyman dies. And these, actually, they're all pretty comparable, but Lyman tends to be a little bit more expensive. I know you can get Lee dies for like $30, but these Lymans are like $45. Worth the extra money, in my opinion. I struggled so much with my Lee 40 Smith & Wesson dies. It made me so mad. And then this Hornady, I think, was $50. But the Lyman run about $45. Okay. Now, brass. Very important. Brass, this is important. Free, preferably. Go to your range. Go to your local range. Pay the fee. Shoot some rounds. Pick up your brass. And if at all possible, talk to your neighbor who's shooting next to you and say, hey man, do you reload? Oh no, I don't reload. Hey, I'll offer to pick up your brass for you, and take the brass. Even if it's for a caliber you don't reload for. Because who knows, if you're like me, down the road, you'll find a pistol that's on sale or something. You're like, hey, I really like this. And then you think, oh man, how am I going to reload? Well, it doesn't become a problem because you already have the brass for it. So the brass is the most expensive component, believe it or not, in each individual cartridge. The brass is the most expensive. And so if you can cut that cost by collecting brass from ranges, or you can buy it cheap online, do not go to a gun store or a chain and pay $20 for 100 pieces of brass. That is an absolute rip-off. They can cost up to $30. Rip off. Total rip-off. Go online, buy Once Fired brass. Ken's Brass is a good place, although they're inconsistent. They've sent me some pretty strange brass in the midst of all the other brass that I ordered. But they followed through okay. Ken's Brass is okay. Just type it in Google. There's a lot of people who are selling cheap brass. $5 for 100 pieces. 9mm is the cheapest brass. So if you have to buy brass, just buy it online. Buy it cheap. Find it as cheap as you can, or collect it from the range. Do not buy expensive brass or brand new brass. It's just stupid, in my opinion. Powder. Most powders are about the same price for pistol. They run about, on average, $25. They can be a little less. They can be a little more. This Winchester Auto Comp is marked $27.99, but I got to have a pretty good in with my local gun shop, and he only charged me $19 per pound for that. As far as powders, you'll find as many opinions on powders as there are belly buttons in the world. The main thing I come back to is, again, economy. You can, I think I packed away the first powder that I used was Blue Dot. Alliant. I say Alliant all the time. Alliant Blue Dot. And that powder, while being a good powder, is not very economical. It takes roughly 7 to 8 grains for a 9mm bullet. And a pound is a pound is a pound is a pound. So you buy a pound of Blue Dot and you put 8.0 grains into a 9mm bullet. Well, you come over here to Auto Comp and it's taking 4 grains. Well, if it's the same price, you're getting twice as much economy out of that powder as you are Blue Dot. Now, it all comes down to your preference, what you like to shoot. Some powders react differently. Some are slow burning, fast burning. That you study up on it. I'm not going to take more of your time talking about that. But for me, what's most important is economy. Because I got into this reloading so I could shoot more and save more. And say, ha ha, get into reloading. you're going to pay $30 a box for 380 ammo or 9mm. That's so stupid. Just get into reloading. So they say that there is 7,000 grains of powder per pound. And that can do about 1,000 pistol rounds, or 1,200, or 1,500. It just depends. So yeah, powder for me, economy is important. Manual. I also wrote that. I have always looked online. You can find a lot of good stuff online for as far as load data. I like to start in the middle of the load. And just kind of just tweak from there. So, for instance, I'll take, let me just open this box here. What I'll do is, let's say, okay, say I'm trying a new powder, and let's say I'm doing like Alliant Unique, which I'm familiar with, but let's say it's a new powder to me. Okay, so it says the lowest, grain that I can use is, and don't quote me, I'm just going to throw it out there, 4.2, okay, 4.2 grains of powder. The hottest load that you can do is 5.5. Well, I'm going to try to go in the middle of that and say, okay, well, how about 4.9 or 5.0? I'm going to load 5 rounds of that, or probably put it in the middle, actually. I'm going to put a piece of tape here, put how many grains it is. Then I'm going to go up 5.1, 5.2,